Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, friends. Welcome to another episode of Leadership Tidbits. I am your host and leadership mentor, Tywauna Wilson. Thank you for tuning in to this podcast. I have another awesome episode for you where I'm going to be giving you some practical tips that you can use in your career. I've gotten a lot of questions recently about how can I fast track my career, or what do I need to do to be successful? Just questions like that. What classes should I take? What education do I need? I've gotten a lot of questions on different social media platforms. I've gotten some messages from scientists all around the globe. And I think it's because maybe you're looking for a career change. Maybe you have hit the ceiling in your current role, but you're looking to do something different. And if that is the case, I'm going to give you some practical tips that you can implement by the end of the year. It doesn't have to be complicated, you guys. It doesn't have to be drawn out or anything like that. You can start mapping out your plan and start putting it into practice, really starting today. So come into the virtual learning laboratory. Make sure you introduce yourself so that I know where you're coming in from. And make sure you put your name and where you're at. And I would like to make sure that I meet you and connect with you. So come on in. And I'm excited. I'm excited to get started. As you know, each and every week on Tuesdays, we drop a new Elaborate Topics podcast episode. This week, I was the co host leading the podcast. Check it out. It's definitely in congruence with this topic. And the podcast was around critical questions that you need to ask during your next interview. So, 7 critical interview questions that you need to ask in your next interview that's going to give you some insight into the organization's stance or philosophy around career development, career promotion. And so go ahead, check that episode out. It's not your standard benefits questions or compensation questions. These are questions that you may or may not be asking. And if you're not asking these questions, you are leaving valuable insight off the table without asking those questions. So you want to make sure you check out that episode. You can find it on Elaborate Topics Podcast or your favorite podcast platform on directimpactbroadcasting.com. So let's jump into what we got for today. Today, we're going to be talking about how to fast track your career by the end of the year. And I'm going to give you some opportunities here that you can actually start to fast track your career today, right? Today, giving you practical stuff. I don't want you sitting around thinking about it, doing all this planning, all this procrastinating, and all of this when you can start to take action right away. So here's the first way you can start to take action. Like, listen, let's get it done. So our October monthly roundtable will be tonight. So I am super excited about it. Cedric LaFleur is our mentor speaker for the session. He's one of my mentors. And so he's going to be giving some great stuff. It's important that you be in the room. So make sure that you are in the room. You can get tickets on Eventbrite. So if you go on over and just search October monthly roundtable on Eventbrite, then you will find the event and you'll be able to register. Now, I will tell you that if you are listening to this and you want the discount code, then send me a message. Just send me an inbox and I'll make sure that you get the discount code for 50% off. So make sure you check it out. It's talking about identifying and developing the best management candidate. So even if you are not thinking about management, you need to be in the room so that you can get some of these topics. Cedric is the visionary author too of this book, The Rise Up, the Blueprint for Manager Success. So if you don't have this in your toolbox, you need to get it. I sell it because I'm one of the authors that was in this book as well. So you need to make sure you have that in your toolbox. So check out our October monthly roundtable. Don't miss it. You definitely want to be in the room. There is an opportunity for you to be featured in my upcoming book. I'm super excited about this collaboration project. It is one of the first coaches collaboration book. So we're going to help you create outcomes and action by changing your habits, because that's how we know that habits get formed, by doing something repetitive and by having other people help you to navigate the path. There's a quote by Michael Jordan that says, "A coach is someone that sees beyond your limits and guides you to greatness." So, this is why you need to get connected with this book. There's coaches from all over. We will be talking about different areas in which you can have success in your life, whether that's financial health, physical and mental fitness, business coaching, my jam, career and leadership coaching, marketing coaching, and more. And the special thing for you right now is that, especially if you are a coach, then we will actually have a coaches directory inside of this book. And if you want to be listed in that coaches directory, and it's only open to the first 25 for that particular section, then all you have to do is pre-order the book. You pre-order the book, take action now, pre-order the book, and you'll have an opportunity to be listed. You could go to the coaches collaboration.com/Tywauna. And that way you will get your name on the list. And maybe you're not a coach, but you want to support and have your name, have your legacy in print. You could still buy the book. It's going to be an awesome resource for you. And you get your name listed. Again, it is limited. Those spots will go fast. So you have to take action. If you think about it, the spots are going to be taken and then you're not going to be able to get your name on it. And one other awesome thing with those that pre-order is that you'll get one VIP ticket to our book launch conference, which will be at the beginning of the year. So again, this is perks. It's perks by taking action. So go ahead, go to the link, pre-order your book. Let us get your name in there so that you are listed, and everywhere that I go, you'll go too, because your name will be inside of the book. So let's jump right into what I have for you today. I just got a few simple tips for you to start taking action right away, for you to start taking action and getting results today. Okay. So, the first thing to fast track your career is to define your goals. Without knowing where you want to go, it will be difficult to map out your plan to get there. So, I like to call this creating your career roadmap. Where is it that you want to go, right? In a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, however you want to look at that time. Where is it you want to go? And then creating that career roadmap to get there. This could be your short-term goals, it could be your long-term goals, but it is your roadmap, and it'll list the things and what you need to do to achieve them. So, defining your goals is critical for fast tracking your career success. And, start, maybe you have a few small goals, maybe you have a few long term goals with that. But if you don't define them, if you just keep them all in your head, which is easy to do, trust me, if you keep it all in your head, then there's no accountability there. and then you don't have to take action, right? Because you've not put it into the atmosphere. You don't have any accountability to achieve your goals. And then what happens, you'll look up and then it'll be 2023 June and you still haven't made any progress towards your goals. So I would say define your goals and give yourself, if we're fast tracking our career by the end of the year, I would have your career roadmap defined or your goals within the next 30 days. That way you have accountability, but you're also putting it in the atmosphere, and then you have a target so that you can start taking action. You don't have to wait until the next year to start taking action on some of these things. You can start to get some small wins right now. Research in your field. That will be something that is very important for you. So, research in your field, once you know what it is that you want to do, it's time that you start learning everything that you can about your particular field. So, if it's the medical laboratory industry, start learning everything that you can about it. I know as medical laboratory scientists, professionals, phlebotomists, processors, and all of our other varied careers in the laboratory. Sometimes you know and understand your scope, but there's so much more stuff that you can do in the medical laboratory, for example. So, as a medical laboratory scientist, I may think generalist, I may think specialist, I may think hospital lab, but there are so many other opportunities that can be done. So, this is why research is very important. And in that research, making sure that you read publications, attend industry events, and talk to people who are already doing what you want to do. This is important. I have read Carla Harris's, her first, I think it was her first book, but it was talking about making sure you do the research and talking with people who are doing the job, because something may look totally different on paper and with the job description than when somebody is actually in it. It may be something totally different. It may have more rewards to it than what you originally anticipated. But talk to people who are doing the job. They can tell you, is it a stressful career? Are you going to be working long hours? They'll give you insight into those kind of things, which may not be captured in a survey of a certain profession or a job description. So, making sure that you do your research, talking to people who are already doing it, read trade publications. So there are several actually laboratory based magazines that are out there that leaders today can get insight into. The professional societies have blogs that you can read. They send out emails. I mean, so there's no shortage of information. And a lot of the organizations now have apps. So they have an app with information, blogs, articles. So you can start there by gaining insight into what's happening in your industry. So I would definitely get connected with that. I would get connected with the trade publications, attending any kind of talks. There are always a lot of continuing education opportunities that are going on, specifically in lab. But if you're not in the lab space, then look at your credentialing societies or look at your professional societies. I'm sure there's blogs, I'm sure there are groups that are centered around those topics. So making sure that you research the field. And if you want an action item around this, then what you can do is 10 minutes a day for the next however many days, you could start looking up different careers. You could start looking up different blogs. All you have to do, fast way to do it, is go to Google and say, How do I find blogs related to clinical laboratory science? Or how do I find blogs related to HR? And it will pull up information for you, tons of information. So that's important for you to do as well to fast track. So spend 10 minutes per day just researching your field and start writing down what you find out, whether it's the blogs, whether it's the articles, whether it is people that you need to talk to that are doing the job. So those are things that you need to do as you are researching. Get experience. I know it sounds easier said than done because sometimes you're like, well, how do I get experience? I want to be in management and I don't have any management experience. How do I get experience? And this is where you might have to be slightly creative in your experience, especially if you can't get the experience inside of your workplace. If you can't get it inside of your workplace, then you might have to go to the community or see where you can volunteer to be able to get that experience or get some of those necessary competencies that's needed. Many employers definitely value experience. So it's important for you to get that experience to get your foot in the door and start gaining some of those real world experiences. So this could be, like I said, volunteering. So volunteer positions, it could be internships, it could be entry level jobs. So those are all ways to get experience. So sometimes you have to take a chance depending on what your goals are that you have already mapped out that I talked about already. If you've done your research, because you know you now need experience, and then figuring out where you can get that experience. One example or one thing that comes to mind that I think about in the laboratory space is that I've had people, they have been, their primary job has been in a reference setting or a core type of a laboratory where there's no direct patient care or anything like that. And they say, well, I want hospital experience. And so what they do is they may go to another organization and work their PRN so that they're getting that experience of being in a hospital setting. They still have their primary job, but they're gaining that experience of what it's like to work in a hospital or what it's like to work in a blood bank or if they don't have that experience. So that's something to consider as well as you are looking to get experience. Being proactive. So if you want to fast track your career success, you got to be proactive. Don't wait for somebody to hand you a job or an opportunity. It's not going to happen. You have to go out and create your own opportunity. So, whatever it is that you desire to be, you got to create your own opportunity. I can remember early on in my journey in my career, I've always wanted to be in leadership. I've always wanted to talk with people and present to people, and sometimes it starts with creating your own stages. So long before somebody gave me an opportunity to present at a conference or speak, I came up with my own opportunities. I had a couple of years ago is when I started my radio station, and I started the Leadership Tidbits, this show, but it was actually an audio version only, live radio. And so that was an opportunity to create a stage, and I got to interview people on my platform, and then that opened up to other opportunities for me. So sometimes you have to be proactive and create your own opportunities. That might look like starting a blog if you like writing. So maybe you want to write for a magazine, but maybe the opportunity hadn't presented itself. Well, you can start writing content yourself. You can start writing a blog. You can start writing LinkedIn articles. You can start publishing longer posts on your social media channels. And then once you start doing that, other people will take notice, and then when those magazines see that your writing style, they'll see your consistency, then they will reach out to you to give you that opportunity. So these are ways that just being proactive, talking with your boss. If you know that you want to be promoted, don't assume that your boss knows that you want to be promoted, right? Everybody is busy running a million miles per hour. And it is really unfair to assume anything in today's market. So if you want to be promoted, be proactive and have that conversation with your boss of, I'm interested in being promoted. How do I make that happen? Here are the skills and competencies that I bring to our work. Here are the things in which I've been able to lead, and have that conversation with them. And maybe they can give you some additional tips, or when an opportunity become available because you were proactive, then they would keep you in mind. So that's a way that you can fast track your career. So if you need to be proactive, a way that you can start doing that today is that if you know that you need to have that kind of conversation with your boss, make an appointment. Make an appointment. Say, hey, in the next 30 days, I'm going to make an appointment. Do it next week. Make an appointment to get on their calendar just to let them know that you're interested, right? Or if it's one of those where you are creative, then go ahead, and if it's like, I want to do articles, start a LinkedIn blog. You can start a blog really at on several platforms. Medium is a platform you can blog on. Social media, all other channels, of course, you can start a blog on. So if that's something that you want to do. Now, I have heard from several medical laboratory professionals that they want to be on the Elaborate Topics podcast. And we would love to have you week after week after week. We are always asking for guests. Don't wait. Don't, I think sometimes people feel like, well, I have to get really good and then I will go for it. No, go ahead and go for it. Submit your interest form, and reach out to us and let us know that you were interested, and we'll find a topic that will be suitable for your expertise and your background, and let's do it. Right? So you don't have to wait until, like, I gotta wait till I get like 5 more years of experience, or I gotta wait until I do this one big thing. No, be proactive, take action today. Show us that you're interested, and we can work with you from there if that's something what you want to do. And on the Leadership Tidbits show, I'm always looking for guests that have a message to share in which somebody else could benefit. And I've had so many different kind of guests on this show, and they have appealed to various different audiences that I have. So if this is a good fit, then you can fill out the interest form for that as well. So being proactive. So no need to wait. You can start being proactive today. Staying up to date, making sure you stay up to date with emerging trends that's going on, with new technology that's going on. So it's great to have a lot of experience. It's great to have as many degrees as you think you can handle. It's great to have as many certifications as your wall can hold plaques for. But you have to stay up to date with the emerging trends in your industry. You have to stay up to date with the technology in your industry. Things are rapidly changing. And if you're not staying up to date, then you are quickly going to you're not going to be marketable, right? And then it's going to be a little bit slower to fast track your career. So staying up to date, what is happening that you need to know? One of the things that recently happened in the laboratory industry was with CLMA now becoming a branch or council under ASCP. So CLMA was their own entity and had been around for a long period of time. Most people knew CLMA because of Knowledge Lab or their body of knowledge. Well, last year, well, actually, it was this year, I think was the first official year that they actually kind of merged in with ASCP. And so, if you haven't been keeping up with what's going on in the market, you might be still out here looking for CLMA as a standalone organization when now they are connected with ASCP. So that was a huge, that was a big deal uh, with that particular change. There's tons of work that's happening with workforce and staffing shortage and what can we do? And so all of the societies, ASCP, ASCLS for my lab folks, COLA, Joint Commission, CDC, like there's so many people that and so many agencies and organizations that are doing the work of workforce shortage, but yet I can go into Facebook groups and different groups and they're like, nobody's talking about workforce shortage. And I'm like, well, where are you at? Like, where have you been? So staying up to date with relevant topics, what's trending, what's going on in our industry, what's happening. So that's something that you can do to fast track. And one of the ways that you can stay up to date is making sure that you get on the email list for your professional society of choice or your industry news of choice. And then that'll keep you up to date with what's happening as well. So that's a quick way you can go subscribe to their newsletter. And then that's a quick way for you to stay up to date with any emerging trends, with any uh, work that's being done for some of the critical issues that's facing the laboratory industry or your industry. Network, network, network. This is something that I can't say a lot. You got to get out there and meet people in your industry, right? So if you are HR professional, you need to make sure you are tapped into SHRM and some of the other organizations so that you can meet people. If you are a laboratorian, you definitely need to be connected with ASCLS, ASCP. You have to get connected with the organizations that are in your industry. One of the global organizations that you may or may not be familiar with is LabVine. So, getting connected with LabVine is another place you're going to get awesome information, the classes that are going on, podcasts. I mean, you name it. There are a lot of things happening on that platform and with that community of people. So making sure you get out there, meet people in the industry, you're attending industry events, conferences, professional or joining professional organizations, making connections on LinkedIn. So don't just say you're on LinkedIn. Having a profile does not really constitute being active on LinkedIn. Like getting on LinkedIn and meeting people and making connections, that's being active on LinkedIn. Posting, commenting on other people's posts, so the more people you know, the better your chances of finding a job or opportunity that's a good fit for you. Studies show that a lot of jobs when they are getting ready to be posted, what happens, internal people will ask their colleagues or ask their friends, do you know anybody that would may be interested in this role? So that's where it starts with asking your network. And if you're not in anybody's network, that means nobody is ever thinking about you for these opportunities that might come up. So get into a sphere of other people's network, because that's going to help you in the long run. Nobody has ever done it alone, right? It really do take a village. And so starting to make connections, I know that you all have probably heard this story before, or we've shared it several times. But when we first started, Stephanie Whitehead and Lona Small and I, when we first started Elaborate Topics, believe it or not, we met over social media. We met over LinkedIn. We met over LinkedIn, and we decided to get together and start that podcast. And we started it almost 2 years ago now. And we hadn't met each other. We did everything virtually. We would communicate via video or phone call or text or social media. And so that was how it started. And it was just, we were like minded ladies wanting to give exposure and awareness to the medical laboratory industry and offer some practical tips. And we said we're gonna do it. We feel like this is a worthwhile cause, and so we did it. And so Stephanie and I have, the first time we met was last year. We had been doing the podcast for 6 months though before I had even met her in person. And I have not met Lona in person yet. Now we're gonna change that in 2023. But as of now, we have not met in person, and we've been able to start a podcast. It's a global podcast. It's on all of the major podcast platforms. It's on LabVine. It's listed as a resource for ASCLS. We've been able to do talks uh, and presentations at numerous conferences together, and all of that came from networking. It came from networking. We all wanted to get connected with other laboratory professionals, and that's what we did. We utilized social media and LinkedIn to be able to do that. So you have to get out there, get out, meet people, and whether that's in a virtual way, since that's now an option, or actually getting out there, going to events, going to conferences. I went to the ASCP's annual meeting, and that's the big lab conference, and it was like a reunion. It was like I met people for the first time. We had connected on social media, or maybe we had been following each other on social media, or been in the same kind of like webinars, but maybe hadn't seen each other. And we got together at the annual meeting, and it was like, yeah, I know you. And it was like meeting people for the first time in person, but it felt like we had known each other for a very long time. So making sure you get out and you network. So whether it's your professional societies, whether it's your social organizations, your sororities, your fraternities, whether it's your alumni associations, those are all ways to get out and meet people and make connections. So take inventory of the things that you're in. So more than likely you graduated from college. If you are looking at this, especially if you are a medical laboratory professional, which is the audience that typically follows me, and it, or you have went to college, so you have your alumni association that you can reach out to and start getting involved and start networking there. You have your particular major. So if you are laboratorian, sometimes those groups stay connected. The clinical lab or medical lab science program, people will stay together and connect. So those are opportunities for you to get started today. If you are in a sorority or fraternity, make sure at your next meeting, if it's live, that you introduce yourself to somebody that maybe you don't talk to as often. Maybe go to lunch with somebody and have a conversation with them. You can always come to The monthly roundtable, that's a great way to network, because at the beginning of the roundtable, for the first 30 minutes, we actually have open tables where you can meet and network with people. So, again, I'm giving you tips that you can start with today. The only limitation is you. And the last tip, so I gave you about 7 tips, which I think is plenty for you to get started and take action so that you can start seeing some benefits by the end of the year. Is keep learning. Keep learning, keep growing. So even if you've achieved your goals, it's important for you to keep learning, keep growing, keep investing in yourself, because your knowledge, your experience, your expertise is like being in the stock market. You pour into it, you put into it, you put into it, and it grows and develops over time. And that's something that nobody can take away from you. Nobody can take your knowledge away from you. Nobody can take the things that you have learned away from you. You still have those experiences. So I think about my journey, and I went to a co-op high school. So in high school, I was in the dental assisting program. I actually went to the state board and took my radiographer's license and got certified. And so I remember that process. I bring in that experience. And so that's what made me want to stay in healthcare. And I was thinking I was going to go to dental school. And then I said, well, I can have any major, so biology or chemistry. And I found medical laboratory science. And I said, well, I'm doing that. And I've been in the laboratory ever since. And so I bring, that experience, the dental experience, the experience of running the mobile van, just learning new things, right? And so that's, you have to keep learning, you have to keep growing. Otherwise, you'll quickly become outdated with your experience, and your skills will become obsolete if you are not continuing to learn and grow and push yourself and challenge yourself. And so those are ways that you can fast track. Keep learning. If you want books to read, so if you want books to read, I'm reading a couple books right now. So I like to listen to audiobooks, but one of the books that I'm reading right now is the Checklist Manifesto, and is written by a physician. It's quite interesting, talking about the kind of the origins of checklists and how in every industry that the use of a checklist or step-by-step guide is in place. And I think about in my industry, we use tons of checklists. And so that's one of the books that I'm reading right now. But I like to read a lot of different kind of books. And so you can do that same thing as well. And so if books is your thing, maybe you say, I'm going to read at least one book by the end of the year, right? So give yourself some micro and macro goals and go ahead and put it into play. Maybe you say, I'm going to attend one webinar or one workshop or one presentation by the end of the year. And then you keep adding to that. And maybe you start to go to presentations that's not even within your scope. Because again, skills, depending on what skills you have, are transferable. And so that's a way for you to be able to keep learning. So these are just a few tips in which you can use to accelerate your goals by the end of the year. So if you are looking to be able to excel in your career, you want to get promoted, you want to move up, then these tips that I shared with you today will absolutely work. They'll absolutely work, and you can start to put them into practice today. So I also have one of the things I was thinking about is that I do have a community. So if you want to be in our community, our Leadership Tidbits community, then let me know. Reach out and I will give you access to that community so that you can start to, again, start networking with people, and you can start to get information because I put a lot of tips in the community. And so that's ways for you to fast track. I understand that you may not have a lot of time, and that's okay. So that's why it's important to make those micro and macro goals so that you're able to spend your time effectively with the few minutes that you do have. So that's what I have for you. I hope you are able to put together and use some of those practical tips. Again, I just want to keep it simple because I know that a busy, confused mind does nothing. And so if you could take those tips and get started right away, that will be a win. And if you watched last week's episode with Cootie Mac, he that was one of the things that he talked about, is one, celebrating the small wins. And so making sure that each and every day you celebrate and be grateful, but also put on your list what is the one thing that you're going to tackle that day, and then you'll start to see your productivity increase. So I hope you put in the work and actually implement a few of the things that I talked about today. I hope to see you at the round table. And if you are a coach or a supporter, get your pre sale in today so that you can be listed and leave your legacy in print. Make sure you tune in to the latest Elaborate Topics episode. So, whether you're a laboratorian or not, those critical questions that was talked about in the episode will benefit you regardless of your industry. Do me a favor, share this broadcast out with anybody you feel like could benefit from hearing practical tips that they can use and implement right away so that they can excel in their career and leadership journey. So, thank you all so much. I appreciate you tuning in to this episode of Leadership Tidbits with Coach T. Wilson. And until next time, my friends, I hope you have an amazing week. And I will see you next time.